Well, hello everyone and welcome back to another video and another F1 23 game ideas video. Today I'm going to be focusing on 10 classic / DLC tracks that must be in F1 23. If you have missed though any of the previous episodes in this series, I recommend go and check that out. I'll try and remember to leave an I thing in the top right hand corner of the screen so you can go and check those previous videos out. So if you've got any ideas of your own, then let me know in the comments below. But first of all, we need to mention a little issue that we did have for about, well, until recently. The fact that the two DLC tracks that we had on F1 22, being Portimao and China, weren't available in career mode until recently. So obviously what we want to see is as soon as these DLC tracks launch, they have to be in career mode. Otherwise, you know, it's a chance to spruce up the calendar, and especially for Xbox players, to give them their season something a little bit different as well, compared to when they don't have the ability to mod any of the liveries, unfortunately. So they're stuck with the same 10 liveries plus whatever they come up with the basic livery editor in my team as well. So giving console players that chance to at least customize a calendar with these additional DLC tracks, fun tracks to drive. I'm just going to quickly mention classic cars. I know I did that briefly last week as well. Basically, we want them back. It's about time that they were brought back since leaving in F1 2020 as well. One thing I would like to see done with classic cars is being able to race a particular manufacturer, so you can have a race just full of old Ferraris, for example, or old McLarens. Maybe able to race, like get an F2 car in there, get an F1 car in there, they get modern day F1 cars in there. Stuff like that would be cool to see, and will definitely increase the chance of people actually using it, using classic cars in not just in Grand Prix mode or maybe even a career mode, but also in online as well. So the first of the tracks is actually in F1 22, Portimao. Recently arrived as well. I would like to see Portimao in F1 23 as well. It's a fun track to drive, so undulating as well. It's already been in F1 22, so ideally they shouldn't take them much to transfer this for F1 23. Obviously it depends on the AI, but hopefully they can get this into career mode from the start of the launch, as I said earlier. But Portimao, already been on last year's game, if there is going to be any DLC tracks on F1 23, then Portimao definitely has the best chance of being one of them. Now the second one, some people are not going to agree with me on this, but Paul Ricard. I don't particularly enjoy Paul Ricard as a circuit. It has not always produced the best of races, but every now and again it does actually produce a good race. We saw it in F1 2021 in real life, where we saw that two-stopper from Verstappen against the one-stopper of Hamilton, for example. And it's a track that's also got a good chance of being as a DLC track in F1 23 because it's been on F1 22. So it's the only circuit that's been removed from the calendar between 2022 and 2023. So it makes sense that Paul Ricard also be a DLC track on F1 23. Number 3, and a fan favourite, Istanbul, hasn't featured on an F1 game since F1 2011, which we can't really play anymore due to games for Windows Live as well. Obviously, Istanbul is actually quite a nice track to drive. It's a fan favourite, so it makes sense to give the fans what they want, and at least, although we can't go there in real life because of monetary reasons, we should be able to race there in the game, potentially have maybe F1 esports at some of these tracks as well. Number 4, Hockenheim, last featured on F1 2019 as the German Grand Prix. So they should have some recent data, especially the fact that Codemasters like to copy and paste their games more recently, although there are rumours that we're going to a new engine which could put to bed any progress of these old tracks, making it towards future F1 games. However, Hockenheim is a really nice track to drive, historically joint home with the German Grand Prix alongside the Nürburgring, and the fact that we don't race in Germany is tragic, because that's such a big audience, especially with Vettel. Although I'm interested to see how that growth continues, if it continues to be at the same rate it has, that following with now the fact that they've only got Nico Hülkenberg as well. Any German F1 fans, let me know in the comments below about that. And that leads me on to the other German track, the Nürburgring as well, another iconic track. If they could get, have that alternating track season between Hockenheim and the Nürburgring again, and provide assurances that there will at least be a German Grand Prix on the calendar, then that would be fantastic, because we can't have, these are two great iconic tracks. They should be on the calendar, really. Provide great racing over the years, especially at the Nürburgring as well. Did see it in F1 back in 2020, and that race was a little bit dull, but then of course it was very cold that day, in October I think it was, if I remember rightly, compared to what we've seen previous years. Number 6, Sepang, last featured on an F1 game in 2017, and it's a good track, to be honest. A lot of people, another fan favourite as well. Always tricky having a race at Malaysia because of obviously the monsoon, possibility of a monsoon, as well, which obviously threatens to cut the race in half. But nevertheless, it is a fan favourite. Not my personal favourite. I always found it tough there in the years that I raced, but obviously previous years of I've done doing these lists of classic cars, Sepang is always one that is hotly requested by you guys and also people as well in the wider community. Number 7, a track that's never been on any F1 game, Mugello. As well. Yes, not particularly. I remember obviously the carnage, that the only time we went there, but obviously it is Ferrari's test track as well. Ferrari do own that circuit, so if you are doing a drive career road with Ferrari, for example, then you've actually got that test track available to you to do some practice laps, for example. And that would be actually quite cool for a career mode, to do some, even if they don't have let's say some testing at a test track, you could do some laps, for example. That would make a great career mode little video for a pre-season episode as well. I only got the one DRS straight, obviously, but did cause that bit of carnage because obviously people were expecting to go right away, and then obviously nobody actually did and caused a pile up behind. Number 8, Bahrain Outer, and I'm also going to include other layouts, including, obviously, remember the short layouts we had at USA, we had one at Bahrain, Silverstone and Japan, I think it was. Those short layouts, get them back in the game. Like, it's about time that we did. The USA one was actually my favourite because it was actually not just cutting out part of the track as well. Bahrain Outer track obviously did actually have a Grand Prix at it, so theoretically it should be in there as the short layout for Bahrain. Maybe getting some older layouts, because obviously there's been people doing many videos over the years of old circuits like old Spa, old Hockenheim, the old circuit at Silverstone, old Monaco, for example. Having these additional tracks in increases the I mean, people go on to do Assetto Corsa to do these types of videos, and what Codemasters and EA really need to look at is to try and bring people back to the game, and by adding these older layouts and DLC tracks, it does indeed bring a lot more videos back to the F1 game as opposed to people jumping to mods on Assetto Corsa. Number 9, Long Beach, and yes, you might say, oh, it's a street circuit, but it's a street circuit that has overtaking. And if you want proof of that, if you look at the record for the win from the furthest grid position back on the starting grid, then that was, funny enough, at Long Beach back in 1983 when John Watson won from 22nd on the grid. So there is ability for overtaking. Obviously, it's an additional American circuit without actually having to go there. As well, obviously, they still do have racing. I think IndyCar go there, or some of them still goes there, I think. But I think they changed the circuit since F1 were last there in the 80s as well. But obviously, we look to include the traditional circuit and not the current circuit, I think. But let me know what you think about which is which, because I don't know which series is and what they've changed, what exactly the changes that they've made to that circuit are actually better or worse. And the final track, Indianapolis. Yes, again, never featured on the Codemasters F1 game. Last featured back in 2006, or no, it's 2007, sorry, on the F1 calendar. Obviously, that track has so much history. The first officially, obviously, when the Indy 500 was part of F1, it actually was the first track in America to host F1 effectively, even though it wasn't actually F1 as well. Obviously, most famously for when I was growing up, it's where the US Grand Prix was hosted where I was growing up. Most famous, of course, for that race in 2005, but to have, it is an iconic track, has so much F1 history. It should, in my view, be on the F1 game as a classic track. That's going to be it for today's video. If there's any tracks I haven't mentioned that you think should be in the comments in the F1 game, I previously mentioned tracks like Fuji, Adelaide, as well, and of course Kyalami as well. I didn't mention Kyalami on this list because obviously South Africa is rumoured to be coming back, but that would obviously be a good way to start for Codemasters to get Kyalami ready, for example, should it be coming to the F1 calendar in the future. So that's potentially another one that could be added as well. So until the next video then, I'll see you next time. Take care, thanks so much for watching, enjoy your day, and goodbye.